All right, y'all. So we are recording, so only hit the button if you want to be on the YouTube channel and be recorded there. So we are recording this session. So hit the recording, like when you ask a question, if you want to be on the YouTube channel, you can hit the button in front of you and it'll pick your voice up. So almost half of you are buying a house in the next few months. Oh, you're gonna.
He doesn't have to scan. Jake, before residency, partway through residency?
I already know Jake's answer on this one.
Yes. As soon as possible. So there you go. Raise it to 50.
Exactly. And it is. And right now it's too early for y'all to have been on Zillow as much as you probably have. Sorry, I forget realtors don't really like Zillow. Whatever the one y'all like is.
Well, I don't have ill feelings towards Zillow.
Okay. My two family members that are realtors hate it.
Well, I think in this day and age, you have to embrace the tools that your consumers are going to use, or else you're just going to get ousted. Just like ChatGPT and doctors, right? You guys like patients who are using these AI bots to get some
ChatGPT is way better than WebMD used to be.
I agree.
I have a headache. Great, you're dying. GPT actually gives some decent information. All right. So we are going to get started. Y'all already know me. And Kelsey, I'm going to let you introduce yourself this year.
All right. Hey, guys. I'm Kelsey Bishop. Casey and I have been doing this now for 8 years, which is crazy. The presentation has been updated because he gave me the link this year to edit. So I had some fun and got to add some more information. When I bought my first house, my realtor did not realize that I was a first-time home buyer until we were sitting at the closing table. So that I had already decided that I wanted to get my real estate license, but that experience definitely has shaped how I approach home buying and working with first-time home buyers. And I love this program. I think this is a great thing that Casey came up with, and just giving you guys some really solid information before you go in to your residency. And that kind of leads us to the goal of today, with helping you guys make an informed decision when it comes to what you are going to be doing about housing during your residency.
And we'll be kind of tag teaming this as opposed to last year where I called out on Kelsey day of.
We survived. We were sad, but we did survive.
So the students actually told me it was way better than when I'm here. So I'll let her do most of the talking today. All right. How many of y'all feel this one over here? That, the house that your parents bought in 99, which, please tell me, how many of you were born after 99? Oh, crap. I'm so old. Yeah, so that house is now going for almost $1.5 million, and that joke's a year old, but not much has changed in that last little bit. Oh, hey, the rest of our agenda disappeared. Oh, well, either way, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff home buying. This is where I just took a local house, and I looked it up and said, okay, well, what did it sell for? What's it worth now? And a house in 2013, the year after our medical school started, sold for $157,000, which I believe it was a new house, judging by the percent of increase on cost there. But as of last year, that house would have sold for a little over $500,000. So interesting times. I mean,
For sure.
all right. Was this one yours?
This was mine because this pops up on my social feeds all the time, and I think it's funny because I remember as a kid driving around looking at houses, and $1 million looked like, something extravagant. And when you look at the market now, and when I have clients with their budgets and I'm looking at houses, $1 million just doesn't go as far anymore. So this was actually a nicer, sometimes the million is like a shack.
I mean, if we're talking California.
Yes, for sure. And I guess I failed to mention when I introduced myself, we're going to blame it on mom brain. that I'm licensed in both South Carolina and Georgia. So I carry my active license in Georgia, so I predominantly sell around Atlanta. And then I have my South Carolina license in a referral state. So I still keep in touch with all the things going on, which is why Casey drags me into this. But I come willing.
You contacted me this year.
I did, because I didn't have it on my calendar yet. And then
My
also,
fault.
I guess you don't know this because I haven't publicized it yet, but I actually got my broker's license this year.
Heck yeah.
So we'll
Good
see
for
what's
you.
to come with that. So I have a little qualification to talk to you guys here today, just not some Joe Schmo off the street.
She knows what she's doing. All right, so let's start on the calculation on do we rent or do we buy? Because with your first attending job, that's typically an easier decision. Going into residency, a little bit different equation for some of y'all. Let's start with the generalities. So
One of
go
the
ahead.
slides that I updated. So renting versus buying. Again, I'm here to provide information. I'm not going to sway you to say everyone in this room needs to buy. Again, this is just about giving you guys information to make the right decision. Right now, so if we looked at homes that were sold in 2025, the average amount of time people stayed in the home they purchased was 8.5 years. That's down from the national average, which was around 12. And so when we look at how long you should stay in a home to try to recoup what you're going to put into it, the general consensus is between 5 and 7 years. If you look at this little chart, you can see if you're going to be somewhere less than 3 years, it probably makes the most sense to rent. 3 to 5 years depends on the market, which we're going to get into in a little bit. 5 to 7 is when you typically break even, and then 7 or more years is where it's really going to become advantageous. And the reason for this, Casey, I know you like this part, the 8%, which look, now we have a range, 7 to 10.
Okay, so yeah. So closing costs. If you buy a house today, you sell it tomorrow for the same exact price you bought it for, you're not actually getting that full amount back. It's going to cost you between 7 and 10% just to have that transaction. So, buy it today for $100,000, sell it tomorrow for $100,000. Well, you've got to have another, $7,000 to $10,000 on the table there.
And the other thing that we want to keep in mind with this is for the physician loans, and we're going to go into mortgages in a little bit, but anytime you put 0% down when you buy a house, it's going to take you a little bit longer to recover when you do go to sell. Now, the market that we've been seeing recently has kind of been the exception, and that's why, it says depends on market, because there are still so many places that are seeing such massive appreciation that you could still make. I mean, we sold our house after living there for 2 years, and we made a profit. So it's just, these numbers are not solid. There's definitely some fluidness to them.
All right, and so you can see all the other things on here. Realtor commissions, because we do have to pay our realtors. Makes sense. Y'all don't work for free as doctors, right? Well, you do right now. You won't work for free as doctors. Sorry, too soon? Homes have to go up in value to make it more worth your while. And amortization, do y'all know what that word means? No. So an amortization curve, I should say, on this is going to be more or less, easiest way I think about it, how much of my payment goes to interest and how much of my payment goes towards principal each month. As you start, it's really lopsided. It's like 98% to interest for the month, 2% to the principal. And that's going to slowly switch over time. So you may be paying $2,000 a month, but very little of that's actually going to the value of your home. It's going to all the interest that accrued each month. But then that small amount, the next month, they can't charge you quite as much interest because you don't owe quite as much principal. And so it kind of goes down and down bit by bit by bit by bit until you kind of hit that magic point, realistically about halfway through, kind of simplifies the math, that your payments are now more principal than interest. It's a good place to be in. All right, and so this, I just looked at a $300,000 house, said if we're putting 1% down, not all that much, 6.5% rate, 30 years. At what point would it have made more sense for me to rent versus buy. And this was for here in Greenville. You would have had to be in that house 4 years, assuming some averages and average market increases and things like that, before you even hit a break-even point. So a 3-year residency in that house, again, just looking here in Greenville, would have had us losing money buying the house. But a 5-year residency would have had us making money. Again, assuming market trends and things like that, but it's still a pretty good rule of thumb. The 5 to 7 years, not 100% guaranteed, but pretty close that you're going to at least break even, likely make some money. And would you agree with that on the?
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is going to be very market dependent. So there's not a one size fits all. We're kind of doing like a national data comparison. I know these numbers specifically more so for Greenville. And honestly, with the amount of growth that Greenville has had in the last even just year alone, this curve may slightly be like you may still be able to make money before that 4-year mark. Again, it's just unfortunately that's the crystal ball of real estate that I don't have. I wish that I did, but most of the time, and I know Warren Buffett agrees, real estate is the best investment, but it is a long-term game.
Yeah. And there's going to be a map a little bit later that will kind of help contextualize this a little bit. South Carolina looks to still be a pretty safe bet.
That's the highest growing per capita in the United States.
Go for it, Haley. I believe I got this one from Bankrate.
I really thought you were going to say Zillow.
No. Zillow always wants you to buy.
Of course.
So, well, what are other considerations when it comes down to should I buy or should I rent?
I think we have, if you switch to the next slide, I think it's
Ta-da.
Yes. All right. So these are some of the elements of buying versus renting. So you can see renting, you're going to have lower upfront costs. You typically need a security deposit. With buying, you're going to have to put a down payment or closing costs, like we've already said. Renting is flexible. If your program changes, you don't like the area you're in, it's easier to pay an early termination or wait for the end of your lease. With buying, you don't have the flexibility, but you do have more stable housing. That's going to go down, showing that your rent may change year to year, but your mortgage should stay about the same. No maintenance with renting. That's always nice to pick up the phone and just let someone know or go into the portal and say, my sink is clogged. With owning a home, you're going to have some more home ownership responsibilities. And then with renting, there's no market risk. You're just in it. You're sending money to pay someone else's mortgage, I think is a nice way to look at it, kind of a transparent way. And then with buying, you do have that potential appreciation, building equity over time. And we'll talk about it a little more. If you switch to the next slide.
Y'all can see she did like so much on this presentation just in the last week.
Told you, he gave me the link and I got to have fun. So I'm going to switch to this last part with the rental. So one of the caveats to all the information we've shared so far is we are assuming that after you end your residency or you go somewhere else that you're going to want to sell. Some of you may not want to do that. You may want to hold on to it as a rental property. And so that kind of throws all of the data out that we were just talking about, because now you have an opportunity to use this to continue having someone else pay your mortgage and you're just building your assets. So when buying your home during residency can make sense would be that 3-year mark, I think is a pretty good one to go off of. Looking at the area that home prices are stable, compare your monthly amount, your mortgage compared to what rent is, because in a lot of places your mortgage still may be on the cheaper side than rent.
And I would say to a place you would want to live, apartment wise and mortgage wise.
Agreed. Yes.
Close to the hospital, safe areas. Don't just Google what's the cheapest rent.
Yeah. No, you want the amenities, right? After coming off of a long shift, you've got to at least have somewhere with a pool or a gym. And then again, just knowing that with a home is going to come some responsibilities, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So renting may be the better option if you're planning to move within 1 to 2 years. So if this is a short-term residency program and you're planning to go somewhere else for a fellowship, renting may be something that we want to look into a little bit more. You won't have to deal with the maintenance, and if you're going to an area where the housing prices are much more volatile. The important thing to notice, and I already touched on this, is that there is no one size fits all, right? The market and deciding whether you are going to buy or rent is going to be a personal decision that you guys make. And so the goal is to look at your timeline, your finances, and what your goals are. And I always say, like, what is your why? Are you buying just because the person next to you wants to buy? It's never a good reason. But if you can come up with, this is why it makes sense, then you'll make the right decision.
Yeah, and the one I hear all the time is, well, it feels like it's the right time to buy based on where I am in life. And that may be accurate, but it may not be for you. I mean, depending on where you're going and a lot of different factors in there. Maybe you're just not ready to buy a house, and that's okay. A lot of folks going into their residencies, especially if the longer residency programs I hear, I've never lived in this area. I want to go rent somewhere for a year and then buy. And that's an entirely valid option. Go ahead.
So this is where having a real estate professional is going to be your best course of action because they're going to know your local market a lot better. We're going to go over market analysis in just a little bit, and that'll kind of give us, but again, we're doing a very broad overview, but definitely a local professional is going to be able to help you understand what's going on. So these questions are things that I just came up with as things you can ask yourself as you're trying to work through this decision. How long will I realistically stay in this area? What will my monthly payment look like versus what rent would look like? Do I have enough money saved for closing costs and emergencies? Would I consider renting the home later? And then does my lender offer physician loan programs? And the asterisks show you that we're going to talk more about closing costs and more about physician loans in just a little bit.
And one consideration I will add just from my experience, I moved away from the upstate saying I would never go back. Never, never, never going back to upstate South Carolina. How do y'all think that worked for me? So keep in mind there is sometimes a pull to go back to where you're from for reasons other than just, nostalgia. For my wife and I, it was a chance to come back to where we had better support system. At the time we moved back up here, we had 2 kids. We have significantly more now. And we needed some help. And it's nice to be able to take date night. Grandma, watch the kids, please. Or older siblings watching the kids. All right.
All right, so here's the fun part, the market analysis. So these are some fun graphs that I pulled off of mostly the National Association of Realtors and also some other things that I'm a part of. So the good news, and Casey and I were talking about this before the presentation started, this is the first home buying presentation we've had where there is so much more potential for buyers than there have been in years past. You can see that in the one on the left, you're seeing that we are having so many more home choices available. Inventory is rising. And then if you look on the right, this is talking about total existing home sales. Home sales are lower than they've been. Now, the important thing to notice here, so this is a year-over-year comparison. So if we look at February 2026 compared to February of 2025, we're at about the same. And you can see that that number changes as we go into the spring and summer months, and then we typically taper back down in winter. That's just the normal trajectory of the market. But the reason that this is good for you as buyers is it tells you that homes are not flying off the market as quickly. So there actually is a chance for people to get into a home.
Yeah, and we were talking about it back during COVID when rates were low. Yes. Homes were flying off of the market like faster. It could go on and be off with 5 offers by the end of the day. Yeah. It was really, really difficult for our students to get a house that year if they were looking to buy. And they were having realtors tour them through on their phone and be like, all right, make an offer. And we'll, just to get this house, we'll go $10,000 over asking price and waive the inspection, which we do not recommend.
Agreed. See what our next one is. So median price of existing home sales. Again, this is all, you keep hearing people say like the housing market is going to crash, right? Have you heard that? Have you seen that? I've been hearing that ever since I got into real estate, and I have yet to see it happen. I think we're all very aware of, for you guys, it would be the stories of 2008 when the market did crash. And the reason it crashed was it was actually our fault in the real estate industry because lenders were lending to anyone. So I think there were some cases.
I would say it's the lender's fault more than the realtor's fault.
Agree. I'm just lumping myself in with.
I'm being nice.
I appreciate that. And so we have the lending process, which again, we're going to talk about in a little bit, has become so much stricter to prevent something like that from happening again. So you can see, like, we stay pretty, I mean, it's a pretty even curve. And again, if you pay attention to the months, you can see that spring and summer is when most people buy, which is why sales prices are typically higher. But if we look again, year over year, we're right about the same amount. We've appreciated a little bit, which is a very healthy market. We like to see between 1% and 3% appreciation. I think there were some areas that we were seeing like 21% appreciation year over year in those pandemic years, which was...
Greenville went up, I believe, 90% in 1 year, and that was rent prices, but still.
No, this is much more stable. I love seeing this because you can see it's just a slower uptick.
Well, and so while we're on here, we keep talking about like seasons and selling and buying and things like that. Why do y'all think the summer tends to be a more active time for it? Schools. Good job. I mean, honestly, that's the main one that comes to my mind. Any others you can think of?
Weather. You know, a lot of people like in the Northeast selling when there's a snowstorm is not as easy, but definitely related to school schedules, work schedules. The summer just tends to be a little bit slower pace. That makes it easier for you to make a change.
Families don't like to move their kids mid-year. Yeah.
So again, this is just kind of talking about the same stuff where we are seeing the year over year as to how many home sales were slightly down. Again, that leans more in favor of you as buyers. Our total number of homes for sale is up. Again, inventory is increasing. The months of supply, we're going to talk about this, I think, in the next slide, but we're still under about 4 months of inventory. And that, again, is going to translate to what's going on with the market. And then that median sales price is up by 0.3% when we compare year over year. The stats on the other little infographic are interesting to me. Our first-time home buyers are up compared to February of 2025. Our cash sales are slightly down. This became a huge, cash became crazy during the pandemic years because people were doing whatever they could to try to outbid the next person. And so if you didn't have to go through the mortgage application, you were seen as a better contender. And then properties sold above list price. This is probably the most exciting information that's on this slide. You can see we went from 21% to 14%. So it is not as common for bidding wars right now. That could change in a couple of months, but right now that's the trend.
And I know we don't have the data, but where would you say that properties above list price was back after COVID or during COVID?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think so too.
Every property sold because there was nothing to choose from. I mean, people were buying. I'm being recorded, so I have to be careful about what word I use.
They were buying like crazy.
Yeah, so they were buying. I don't know. It was.
I can say it. They were buying crap on some of them.
There you go.
Nice words. I have to make these like appropriate to post online. So looking at the first-time homebuyer demographic and how that's going up, which is good to see. Do we have much data on that, or is it like breaking it down? Are we actually seeing younger folks getting back into the market where they had been backing out?
So most of our first-time homebuyers are millennials. That is the meat of our first-time homebuyers. The age of the first-time homebuyer is still higher than it was a few years ago, but I think in general it's still a good trend to see that more people are jumping in.
Agreed.
This, again, is just looking at inventory levels. So you can see that in most places in the United States, we've recovered from the pandemic. So the only places that we are still a little bit below is that Midwest and Northeast. But again, these slides are just trying to show you the strength of this market that we're in.
And here's the one we were talking about a little bit earlier.
The fun one.
The darker the blue, the more people move to the state. Easiest way to look at it. The darker the red, the more people fled the state.
So I think it makes sense. And this, again, is not just, this is from the last year. This is 2025. But I think if you look at the history of the real estate market, this tends to be pretty common. The South just draws people, and you can see from how much blue. I mean, gosh, from south of Virginia, that whole section is just different colors. And then as we go northeast, you're seeing a lot more red. I was surprised I don't know what draws people to Montana. Might have to go visit.
Property tax is 0. Income tax is 0.
I'll have to add that to my list. California, I get it's insanely expensive, and their property taxes are insane. The interesting part, I think Washington is going to be seeing a huge hit for this year. If you heard about their new tax that they just implemented, did you hear about this?
No, do tell.
They're doing something where it's called like the millionaire tax. And so for people who are making a certain amount of money, they're going to be taxed a lot more. So they are actually relocating to Florida where there's no income tax.
Well, I mean, in Illinois did not the same thing, but similar a number of years ago, and you can see they're still kind of reeling from that. Yeah. A lot of folks moved next door to Indiana, and a lot of folks just said, we're getting out of Dodge. We want to hold on to our money. Yeah. And by the way, the millionaire tax that if anyone has one, about within 10 years of being attending, that will be all of you in this room, probably, assuming you invest properly.
Had you as their teacher, so I'm sure they're all going to make very, very responsible financial decisions. Right, guys?
Sorry, that was mean.
Okay, so this was the months of inventory when we were just saying we're hovering right under 4 months. So this determines, depending on how much inventory we have, determines the type of market we're in. So you can see we take the active listings and we divide that by the number of homes that were sold per month. So what we were in was that 0 to 3 months. So that was when we were seeing multiple offers. We were seeing people include crazy things with their offer. Right now at 4 months, we are still in a seller's market. That's important to know. That, again, like that shows there is still strength as a seller, but as a buyer, it just means that you are getting a little bit more wiggle room to negotiate. And we're getting closer and closer to a balanced market. I don't know if we'll get there. Again, I don't have the crystal ball. But if you go to the next slide, I think it is. So this is just kind of talking, again, looking at that 2021 to 2023 when we saw all of this. That was with very low interest rates and just we did not have the demand. So we were in that 0 to 1 month supply of inventory. I have said, I think if you go to the next slide, my personal nickname for this market is a buyer-specific seller's market. So when we go on listing appointments and someone says, how long do you think it's going to take to sell my home? A lot of times my honest answer is, I don't know, right? If your home appeals to what most people are looking for, we may still get multiple offers. That is still happening. That's still happening in the Greenville market where homes are going off the market in 48 hours. But then there are other homes in the same Greenville market that are sitting and the sellers are having to do price reductions or they're having to negotiate all these extras to try to get their home sold. And that really depends on condition. That depends on location. And the main driving force for that is interest rates, right? In 2021 and 2022, 2023, interest rates were so low that buyers didn't care what they were buying. They were just able to buy. So it was, we're going to pick up property and we'll figure out the rest later. Now interest rates are a little bit higher. Buyers are paying more money. And so instead of jumping for anything, they're saying, I'm looking for this, this, and this. Your property better be in turnkey condition because I just don't have the extra funds to do what I would have done.
And I would say when we're also looking at this with housing prices creeping up marginally, inflation on other things is going up pretty heavily. So there's just not as much extra money around. They want a house, like Kelsey was saying, ready to go. I want to be able to move in. It's not time for a fixer-upper because also the cost on all those fixing-upping things is even higher.
But on the catch side to that, if you do have extra money, buying a fixer-upper right now could be advantageous because other people don't want to touch it.
Agreed.
So this, I think, the hardest part, and again, I've said I don't have a crystal ball.
Did you quote Warren Buffett on this one?
No.
Because he says the same thing about the stock market.
Does he really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I was channeling him. But the hardest thing that The hardest thing that's the easiest to do is to say, I'm going to wait until the market crashes. I'm going to wait until this happens. And what happens is that it doesn't happen, right? We don't get there. I had buyers tell me that they were going to wait to see what happened in real estate. We sat down for dinner, I think it was in 2021, and they said, we're just going to wait a year. We think the market's going to change. Do you know that their budget was significantly impacted in that 1 year that we waited for them to buy a home? So what I keep getting back to is whatever your timeline is, whatever your why is, that's the best time to buy. Worry about the rest later. I think if you ask any investor and you say, hey, if you could go back 10 years ago, do you wish you had bought more real estate? And their answer would be absolutely. And I think in 10 years from now, if you look back and go, gosh, do I wish that I had bought? Your answer will probably be the same.
All right, so now what about if you buy? And all of this was like, should I rent, should I buy? And now we're actually getting to the point of buying.
Now we're going towards the buying route.
So what should you be thinking about? We've kind of made that decision. And then, again, around half of y'all said you were planning on buying before you start residency, and a few more, partway through. No one actually said as an attending. No one said they were definitely waiting till an attending, although a couple of you said you don't know. So these are my basic pieces of advice. Don't overbuy, but buy enough. Oh gosh, Casey sounds like he's contradicting himself already. So what do I mean by this? Don't go buy the little McMansion yet. Y'all aren't there. But plan out, how long am I going to be here? Things we've already been talking about. Am I going to be there for 5 years? What do I see? No crystal ball. Best guesses. What do I see as my life within the next 5 years? If I'm in a relationship, do I see myself having kids? Do I see myself having multiple kids? Like, have we had that conversation yet? Y'all should have that conversation if you're in long-term relationships. And if so, I don't want to buy a one-bedroom house. Quite frankly, don't buy a one-bedroom house anyway. But I don't want to buy a house that's not going to fit what I'm hoping to be my life 5 years from now, as long as I'm planning to be in that house. My wife and I, our first house was a 2-bedroom. How do you think that would have worked with our family size? Yeah, we stayed there 3 years and sold it and didn't make money on it. Then we thought we would stay in Columbia. I thought I would retire from USC's main campus. And clearly that didn't happen. We sold after the 2008 crash. So, great lessons there. Don't try and time the market. But came up here in a house that we thought we'd be in 5-7 years. Lizzie was a newborn when we went there, and she's now 13 and going to her first prom. Heaven help me. It's a junior high prom. I see the looks on faces. No. The young man taking her is also her age. Yeah, nothing weird going on there. All right. So, what's the worst case? I know that we don't always want to plan based on fear, but I want to think about what's the worst case that can happen. I'm buying a house. Yes, maybe it's turnkey ready, but that HVAC unit's 12 years old. So I want to factor that into if I'm going to buy, can I afford to replace an $8,000 to $10,000 HVAC unit? Ooh, maybe not. Or if I have to, can I afford to finance that same thing? What are my other things? And y'all, I'm living this right now because we need a new leach field in the backyard, and we may and may not need a new HVAC unit. So, yeah, but we've at least gotten our money out of the old one. What's my reason for buying? Is it just a timing thing? Is it an investment thing? These are valid reasons, but be aware of them. And then do everything you can. Emotions are so tied up in this, but it's just like your budget. There are some very finite reasons on a lot of these. Should I buy? Should I not buy? And which house should I pick? Be as good as you can about putting it down on paper. I want to buy these houses for these reasons, and my house must have XYZ because whatever those are for you. And that's a discussion for you and a significant other in some cases. That's a discussion for you and yourself in other cases. But be sure that you're not just going to walk into a home and be like, oh my gosh, I love it. And it's just you love it because of the paint colors or something like that. That can be changed anywhere you go. Take that emotion out of it where you can.
So what to look for and look out for when buying a home, just continuing this, location and commute. Some of you are going to want to be really close to the hospital, right? I've worked with residents who are wanting to be within a 5-minute drive. I've worked with residents who say, absolutely not. I want to decompress on my drive home, and I want to live somewhere far enough removed that I feel like I'm not at the hospital 24/7. So whatever is important to you, but check the drive time. It's great to be able to use the Maps app and you can check like different times of day without actually having to do the drive. Consider, of course, call nights and early mornings that you might have to be there. And then something that's super important to me is always being close to a grocery store. I won't buy a house that's further than 5 minutes because we're at the grocery store all the time. Get a feel for the neighborhood.
Is that the mom brain thing?
Probably. It's normally my husband who I send to the grocery store, so he appreciates being 5 minutes away when I tell him that we're out of eggs, but because we don't have chickens, Casey. We need to level up. Getting a feel for the neighborhood. This is one of the things, again, I'm guessing that most of you for spring break are going to wherever you match to kind of scope out the area. I know that's been years past. That's typically when people do their home buying trip. Drive the neighborhoods that you're interested in at multiple times during the day if you can, or just try to be there if you're on a weekend, just to get a general feel. Is there any change that maybe, it was quiet on a Monday morning, but on a Sunday afternoon, it's rowdy, or on a Saturday night, it's more rowdy. Walk around if possible, just to give yourself, could I see myself living here? Do I feel safe? Those sort of questions. And then another important feature is just paying attention to how the other houses look in a neighborhood that you're interested in. Are there a bunch of cars? Does someone have, their RV parked? Do you mind looking at an RV across the street from the house, or would you prefer for that not to be there? Does someone have a boat? Is it covered with a crappy tarp? You can tell I'm talking from experience. Size and budget. This is what Casey was talking about. So you're buying what fits your residency budget, not what's coming as future attending. Again, looking at that maintenance costs and utilities and thinking about resale value. Most of the areas you guys are buying in, the resale value is going to be there because there are going to be more residents coming in, right? You're not moving into rural districts. So that's something that is advantageous for you. Again, talking about the neighbors, just listening to noise levels. If there's nearby construction, this is super big if you're looking at buying in a downtown area and looking at a high rise. If you're like, wow, I love my view, make sure you're going to get to keep that view, right? And there's not a high rise being built next to it that is going to change that.
Yeah, those lovely beach view homes that then someone puts something up on the first row.
Yes, absolutely. And then HOA. HOAs are becoming more and more common. People have strong feelings towards them. I think HOAs can be great.
They're evil.
They can be great because they help preserve your property value, but they also can get out of hand if they go unchecked, right? You don't want the person who's walking around with their free time writing, oh my gosh, this person has a weed and their shutter needs to be painted. Also look at, if you can, go ahead and look at the covenants and restrictions if you're buying in an HOA community, just so you know if there are rental restrictions, if that's a goal for you, and what amenities you're going to be paying for. With HOAs, especially when we're looking at condos and townhomes, there's something called an assessment. And this typically happens if the roof needs to be replaced, if there's plumbing, general plumbing that needs to be fixed, anything of the common areas. They're going to take inventory of how much and then divide that amount by all of the homeowners, and they're going to come and ask for a check. So just, again, keep that in mind as something to just consider when you're looking and trying to decide between a single-family home, a condo, a townhome.
And one thing, kind of getting back to the feel of the neighborhood, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but y'all as realtors still can't say this is a safe neighborhood, this is not a safe neighborhood. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. We're bound by what we can say just because my definition of safe may be different from your definition, right? And so God forbid something happens and you're like, well, Kelsey said that this was safe. Well, now I'm going to get sued. And so to protect myself and to protect you guys, you have to make those decisions for yourself. Now, I can certainly give you information on the area, and I can point you in. I love pointing people to like the police department to check registries or to check crime reports. I'm like, here's the website, look for yourself, and then make your decision.
Yep, definitely. Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Can I give the financial aid answer on this?
sure.
It depends.
That's a terrible answer. I was gonna go into more detail. So it is going to depend, right? It's going to depend on if you're looking at a single family home, if you're looking for a neighborhood HOA. Those are, again, it's going to be area specific, but look at what amenities it's offering. Does the neighborhood have tennis courts? Or I guess pickleball is the big thing right now. Does it have pickleball courts? Does it have a pool? Is there, a facility? Or are you just paying for landscaping? If you're just paying for landscaping and they're trying to get $1,000 out of every buyer, my caution flags are going up. That seems
Definitely.
a little, I don't like that. With condos, this is going to be tricky because condo HOAs are notorious for going up. I've had clients who buy and they're like $400 to start with, and then in a couple of years they're at $750. And again, there are so many.
And are these per month or per year when you're referencing these?
Yeah, so condo and townhomes, typically the HOA is going to be paid monthly. So that's going to be something that you have to, when you're going through your underwriting process, you have to qualify not only for the house payment, but the house payment with the principal interest with the HOA amount. When you're looking at a neighborhood, it's typically due once a year, and you just pay that lump sum. I think it's typically in March that you do pay that. But so I would say compare the cost to what you're getting for the cost. And, for me personally, especially with a condo, I would have a hard time paying over $700 a month in addition to my mortgage. I know Casey's over here about to.
I'm having a heart attack with that number.
But again, you're getting the amenities. You don't have to carry a gym membership. Condos and townhomes, pay attention to parking. Is the parking included with the HOA? Because sometimes it's not. That's an additional expense. But I don't know if that helps a little bit. It's going to be case by case specific.
And in your covenants, sometimes, not always, there may be restrictions on how much it can go up each year and what it takes to raise the rates. Is it just a decision by the board, or does it take a vote by all members or a certain number of members and that sort of thing? So definitely something to keep in mind there. As much as I say HOAs are evil, I live in a great one. I pay $90 a year. And our HOA gives us access to a lake and common area and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so for me, it's vastly worth it and almost nothing.
Well, and again, your local agent who you work with is going to be able to help you know if this is normal, if this is high. And you can always request a financial audit from the HOA while you're in escrow to just try to get more information to make sure. Because I know there was a neighborhood when I was practicing real estate here. There was a neighborhood that I'm totally blanking on the name. It's off everything.
Probably better if we don't mention it anyway.
I know everything's off of Woodruff Road, but it was one of the neighborhoods off Woodruff Road, and they had a terrible thing with their HOA, and the HOA was spending it poorly, and they ended up having lawsuits.
Let's say, was this also the one where there was embezzlement going on, or was that a different one? Okay,
so that's that one.
But financial statements, y'all. All right. Finish this sentence. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. I'll tell you what, there are, and y'all employ some really amazing photographers when it comes to these houses.
Because we represent the seller.
Exactly.
So our job is to market the property, right? And so we're not going to put up pictures that don't entice buyers to come in, kind of like a dating profile, right? You're not going to put ugly pictures of yourself up. You catfish. You put pictures up. I know I just said that, and this is recorded. But you put pictures up that are going to show a property in its best light. And when you show up, you may go, okay, I see the resemblance, but are we in the same house? Are we sure? I don't do that because, again, I operate differently with real estate. I want to have a positive experience when I'm representing the seller and buyer. But cameras can do amazing things if you haven't learned that in the digital age that we're in.
And stagers can do a lot of good work, too.
And AI.
Yeah, that, too. It's not a horrible thing to toss it through an AI platform and say, hey, how much of this looks generated by AI?
I haven't tried that, but that's actually a good idea.
Yeah. All right. So you're thinking about a fixer-upper. Any of you, well, let's start. Any of you thinking about a fixer-upper in here? Okay. 2 of you, maybe. Don't raise your hand on this one. Think internally. Do I have the skills to actually do it? And then remove about 20% of the skills you think you have. What? It's accurate. We all go in thinking a project's going to take us an hour, and it takes us 3. We all go in thinking, I could replace my flooring. You're laughing. I did that about 2 years ago in one of my rooms, and it's good, but it ain't great. So do I have the skills? And what's my return on investment going to be? My favorite are all these window companies that are like, you're going to get this most amazing return on this investment. It's going to make your house sell instantly when you put it on the market. You're going to save, cut your energy bills in half, blah, blah, blah. My house with $10,000 windows down in Columbia sold for $10,000 less than I bought it for. Again, partially market driven, but the windows didn't really help. It still was on the market for a year and a half.
Yeah, and this is where we typically talk about solar panels. Casey knows.
Oh, for crying out loud, yes. You take this one.
I have such a passion when it comes to talking about solar panels. Market dependent, okay? Solar panels can be great. They look ugly on your home depending on which way they have to face. But they can certainly cut your energy bills in-house, but they actually cause a problem when you go to sell if you haven't outright bought them. If you finance them, guess what? When you go to sell, the person who's buying your house now has to qualify for the house, the HOA, if there's an HOA, and the solar panels. And so it takes your buyer pool from a big number and it just shrinks it down. And so it just makes it harder to sell. There are some markets across the country where solar panels, if your house doesn't have it, you're the odd man out, right? So you would want to have solar panels in that. This is not that market. Atlanta is not that market.
Like Northwest tends to be that market, and then actually pretty much a lot of the West.
And like I said, if you're going to pay for it and maybe it's not on the front of your home, go for it. But if you're looking to finance it and you don't plan on staying in this home forever, just be cautious. That's my personal experience with clients.
Yeah, and they have a limited lifespan. The older ones are starting to fail. The newer ones seem to be doing a little bit better.
Well, and I think Elon is doing something with solar tiles. Have you heard of this? Is anyone?
Oh, yeah, the solar terracotta tiles.
So those might be interesting. I don't know. Again, it's going to take a lot to sway me because I have such a negative.
I bet we'll see it in Florida first.
Probably. But just do your research.
Yep. All right. We mentioned this earlier.
This is the most important thing.
I forget, is that my image or your image on the guy that I love home inspection videos on Facebook. I'm not even looking to buy a house, y'all. But this guy, he's hilarious, but he goes over a lot of good things. And I especially love when he does new build inspections. So why don't you tell us why we need an inspection?
Go to the next slide, please.
Absolutely.
There you go. Inspection. So typically you're going to spend about $400 to $800 on an inspection. This is mostly going to be paid during that due diligence or that inspection time period. Sometimes you can bill it to closing, but it is critical that you get this inspection. Even in the years where we were seeing multiple offers, even if you end up buying in an area that is very competitive and you say, I don't care about the inspection, I'm going to put in my offer that I'm buying this home as is, that's great, still get the inspection. You can terminate if you decide that things are too too big or they're worse than you thought, inspectors can't find everything, right? And they carry so much liability. That little thing you sign that says, we know you're going to do your best, but if you miss something, it's not your fault. And at least gives you a little bit better of an idea about things that you're not paying attention to when you go and you're touring homes. Georgia and South Carolina are both buyer beware states. And what that means is that once you close on the property, if something comes up, you've already purchased it and there's no repercussions, or it'd be very, very hard to get repercussions because you'd have to prove that the seller knew about it before you took ownership. And then the type of inspection is going to depend on the area. So this is, again, where a local agent is going to be able to help kind of advise you into which ones you need. Obviously, a home inspection is a good place to start. If the property is on sewer, you want to get a sewer scope, check the lines. I had a client who closed on a home, and it was a few months later that they found out they had to replace the line from the house to the street, which was about $7,000. If it's on a septic tank, what is the condition of the septic tank? You can get an inspection for that. If the property has a pool, go ahead and get a pool inspection. Radon, there's mixed feelings out there. Greenville is a high radon area, so is Atlanta because of Stone Mountain. And that is just, there's a tie to increased risks for cancer with your exposure to radon. You can get a mitigation system put in. Doesn't end up being a big deal, but having that information is power. Other things that you might test for depending on where you go, there's something called like a meth test to see if there was ever meth constructed in the home, which is crazy. That's not in this area. But just, again, it's going to be local. I mean, it could be in this area. I haven't heard of that.
I won't say it on the recording, but the town.
It's just crazy because, like I said, different areas have different inspections that they recommend. These are just the expensive home repairs. Roof repair, obviously, sometimes this gets covered by insurance. Most of the time they find a way not to. Removing mold is expensive. These air quality testers, though, I'm really convinced that a lot of it is kind of a gimmick. I had a client who got a mold. They tested positive for mold, and their quote said, this is how much it's going to cost. I think the quote came in at $9,500, but they said, but you just pay what you can pay, and we'll take care of it. I was like, hold on. So it's $9,500, but if we give you a 20, you're going to cover it. And they're like, yes, because, it's so important to us that this mold gets taken care of. And I thought, this is not a good business model.
It just sounds too gimmicky.
Right? I thought so. So always do your due diligence on companies you choose. Plumbing issues, like we talked about with the sewer scope, septic system, you definitely want to make sure that is in good working order. Any foundation issues, they tell you, especially if you buy a home with a basement, it's common to see cracks, right? A home is going to settle as it moves, but horizontal cracks are like run. Those are the bad ones. Vertical cracks, not as bad, but home inspectors will tell you if you see a horizontal crack, that means big money. And then electrical issues. Another thing to note for those of you looking at doing fixer-uppers, just pay attention to if you pull permits to do repairs or to do updates, there's a chance they're going to want you to bring the entire house up to code. So you may have to be saving money for a new electric panel and all of that good stuff.
All right.
This is Casey's fun slides.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun with this. So what are the biggest red flags in the home? And I think we've already actually hit some of them, and an inspection will key you in on most of them. I kid you not, like water to me is like the biggest worst thing because you've got so many issues that come with it, from the mold to structure. Toured a house one time, we got to opening the front door with the realtor and we shut it immediately. The floor was a wave because the home had been vacant and not been taken care of for years, and there were water issues. I actually think the neighborhood, so the house ones tend to stand out. Like, can you think of any major red flags that tend to hide in a house or that they wouldn't be thinking of?
I have a really critical eye. My husband was a residential builder for years, so house hunting with me is so fun because I will literally turn my clients and I'll say, this isn't it. Like, I know what you're looking for, and we're going to walk out. Lipstick on a pig, right? You walk in and you can just tell that a home has been done poorly. It's been upgraded.
Flips.
Yes. And you have to be really careful with flips. Sometimes you can tell from the pictures. Like I said, I just have a really critical eye.
The house is empty is a dead giveaway a lot of times. Or a new house, but
Water, like you said, I mean, water is definitely, I mean, that's a big money item. If it's on a basement, does it have that musty smell? The other things that I would say really stand out to me, again, I mean, we're looking at cracks. We're looking at, I mean, I'm picky, like, did they take paint cover? Did they take electric switch plates off and paint around? Or did they like do a really sloppy job? Because that just typically for me tells me the quality of work that was done in the entire home. Also, you might find an older home that is outdated and maybe not pretty, but it's really well taken care of.
Good bones.
It's clean and it has those good bones. And that to me is much more attractive. I think the elderly generation just did a much better job of taking care of properties than the newer generations have.
Yeah. And even though a lot has changed in code over the years, like it does seem they were built better back then. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right. So what about red flags in the neighborhood? So to me, and this is an old general rule of thumb, you don't want to be the nicest house in the neighborhood. That means you're dependent on everyone else's house value. You kind of want to be the middle house. And I would even say it's not bad to be the cheapest house in a really nice neighborhood, because then everyone else is going to be bringing you up. Bless you. Other red flags. If you're in an HOA neighborhood and it says you can't have X, Y, Z, but every neighbor has X, Y, and Z, I think that tells you the HOA is ineffective and your money's not going anywhere beneficial. What else can we think there? I mean, just total trash pile on the way in.
Things we've already talked about, driving different times to just get a real feel, like how many cars are in the driveway, how many cars are in the street. That typically tells you the type of neighbors that you're going to have. Do you mind having farm animals next door? Are you
back off my chickens?
As long as you don't have a rooster. And then, just paying attention to, like Casey said, the upkeep of other people's properties. Are they nice? Are they at least, mowing their grass, or has everything just been let go?
And especially on your drive into the neighborhood. If you're thinking this is a residency home, I'm probably going to move afterwards. Are the houses well kept getting to my house? Because that's what everyone's going to drive by on their way to your house to see if they want to buy it when you go to sell. Just definitely a key thing there. We once had a neighbor who, we wanted to be in an area, so we bought the house in the area. And the neighbor had a lot of stuff in the